It wasn't a fight. Fights have heat, they have friction, they have something that implies two people still care enough to spark. What Zach said to me wasn't fire. It was absence. Cold. Indifference dressed up in teenage scorn. Stop pretending you raised me. You're just the guy who buys stuff. He said it while scrolling on his phone. Didn't even look up. Like I was a winded Amazon delivery guy blocking his screen. 14 years. 14 years since I met Jenna. Zach was 8 when I moved in. Missing teeth. Hair always too long in the back. Obsessed with dinosaur books and afraid of thunder. I taught him how to ride a bike. I drove him to every summer camp, every dental appointment, every last-minute school pickup when he forgot his project at home. I bought his first backpack. Later, his first laptop. When the tuition deadline hit last fall and Jenna's ex was between jobs again, it was my card that saved the day. But to him, I'm just the guy who buys stuff. That sentence didn't just land. It erased me. It rewrote every sacrifice I'd folded into the seams of this home. I remember standing there, grocery bags still in hand, eggs tilted in their carton. I'd just come back from the store, his favorite cereal on sale, a 6-pack of that overpriced sparkling water he always drained before anyone else got a can. I'd walked in expecting the usual silence, maybe a nod. What I got was an obituary. Not for me. For the version of me who believed I was ever anything but a walking wallet in this house. I didn't respond. I didn't ask why. There was nothing to say. Words couldn't fix what had just been revealed. I simply walked past him, climbed the stairs, and opened the door to his room. The air still smelled faintly of the cologne I'd bought him for prom. The walls were cluttered with concert posters, photo strips with friends he never introduced to me, shelves crammed with gadgets and collectibles. All of it curated by the money of the man he didn't respect. I stood in the doorway for a long time, listening to the hum of the ceiling fan and the muffled sound of a game streaming downstairs. And then, slowly, deliberately, I began. The desk? Mine. I unbolted it piece by piece. Chair? Gone. That sleek, ergonomic one with the lumbar support and adjustable tilt? I'd spent an hour reading reviews to find it. The TV? I carried it downstairs like a corpse. The gaming console, the blackout curtains, the wireless charging stand, the mini fridge stocked with energy drinks. All mine. All gone. I filled the back of the truck until the shocks groaned. Drove straight to the youth shelter on the east side. The one I'd donated to before, but never really seen. They took everything. Gratefully. No questions. When I got back, Zach's room was stripped. Walls bare. Carpet flattened where the furniture had stood like ghosts refusing to move on. I left one thing behind. A single note taped to the wall where the TV used to hang. You were right. You owe me nothing. And I owe you even less. I slept well that night. Not because I was at peace, but because I was finally honest, with him, with Jenna, with myself. She came to me the next morning, panic under her skin. I was at the kitchen table drinking black coffee, scrolling through the donation receipt like it was a eulogy. She stood there in silence, fists clenched. You emptied his room, she finally said. I looked up. He said I didn't raise him, so I took back everything I provided. He's a teenager, Matt. He doesn't mean half the things he says. I raised an eyebrow. Funny. He meant it well enough to say it to my face. Not during a tantrum. Not in a rage. Just casually. Like telling someone their flies down. She closed her eyes. Took a breath. You could have talked to me first. I set the mug down. You remember that night last winter? The dinner party? When he joked that I was just the sponsor, not the dad? Whole table laughed. Pulled you aside. Told you it wasn't okay. You told me, and I quote, "Let me handle it. He's my son. These are our issues." Her face paled. She remembered. So, I continued, I let you handle it. I let you protect him. Now I'm protecting myself. She turned, left the room without another word. I didn't follow. That silence? It was louder than any argument we'd ever had. Zach came home that afternoon like nothing had changed. Slid his shoes off lazily by the door, muttered something about being hungry, headed up the stairs. I waited. 2 minutes later I heard it. The pause, the sharp inhale, the creak of bare floorboards. Then footsteps back down. Quicker this time. He stopped at the threshold of the kitchen. What the hell? Room looked different? I asked, not looking up. Where's my stuff? Gone. Donated. He stared at me like I'd stabbed his dog. You can't just. You're right. I can't pretend I raised you. So I stopped pretending. His face twisted. I saw it then, that flicker of realization of loss. Not because he missed the objects, but because the scaffolding of his entitlement had just been yanked from beneath him. You didn't even talk to me first. I looked him square in the eye. You talked. Loud and clear. I finally listened. He stood there, silent. No apology. Just confusion. Like he couldn't quite grasp how his words had finally triggered consequence. And then he said something that almost made me laugh. This is abuse. I stood, slowly. Walked past him. Stopped just short of the door. No, Zach. Abuse is raising a man's hopes. Letting him believe he's part of your life. Taking his time, his money, his years, and then one day reducing him to a transaction. You said I'm just the guy who buys stuff. So I'm done buying. I went out for a drive after that. Needed air. Space. I ended up on a quiet stretch just outside Austin. Parked near one of those big, soulless outlet malls. Sat there for an hour, engine off, heat baking the windshield, phone silent. 14 years. And not once had he called me Dad. Not once had Jenna insisted he should. When I got home, Zach's door was closed. I knocked once, just to leave one last message behind. From now on, whatever you need, ask the man who did raise you. No reply. Not that I expected one. The next morning, the house was still. No music. No slamming doors. No teenage stomping meant to mark territory. Just quiet. Hollow and uncomfortable. I woke early. Earlier than usual. Something about reclaiming your boundaries kicks your body into a kind of hyper-alertness. I made coffee slow, measured the grounds like a chemist. Sat at the table where no one joins me anymore. The chair across from me. The one Zach used to slump in while demanding avocado toast or breakfast tacos. Stared back. Empty. I didn't miss him. That was the thing. I missed the version of him I thought I had. But the real Zach. The one who weaponized my presence against me. Who mocked the effort behind every gift, every gesture, every long hour of overtime spent so he could have extra. That boy I didn't miss. Before he even woke up, I had shut off the Wi-Fi. The modem? Mine. The service? Paid through my card. Always had been. Just like the Netflix, Hulu, Spotify Premium, and that damn food delivery subscription Jenna insisted made her feel less overwhelmed. By noon, I'd canceled them all. The prepaid debit card I loaded for Zach each month, labeled college coffee plus Uber only, was already frozen. I did it last night after our brief showdown. One swipe, and the app welcomed me with a blue banner. Funds held. Access denied. Let him drink tap water and take the bus. That's what I did at his age. And nobody called that abuse. He finally emerged around 11, shirtless, sleep still crusting his eyes, tapping at his phone with growing irritation. I watched him from the hallway as he wandered from room to room like a stranger in a hotel he didn't book. Every time he tried to connect to something, I could see the glitch ripple across his face. No internet, no entertainment, no delivery, no comfort, just silence. I thought maybe he'd confront me, shout something again about being just the guy who buys stuff. But he didn't. Not yet. The silence had shifted. It wasn't confidence anymore. It was confusion. A kind of disoriented, newborn silence that creeps in when a spoiled animal realizes the food bowl's empty and no one's coming to refill it. He didn't ask for help. Didn't knock on my door. But that night, I heard the door to his hollowed-out room open and close 3 times in an hour. He kept pacing the hall, checking his bank app probably, refreshing screens that no longer led to anything. The house had grown colder, both literally and figuratively. I turned down the thermostat. Jenna used to argue for a cozy 72. I dropped it to 65, just enough to nudge the air into discomfort. She noticed immediately. Matt, Did you change the temp? I nodded without looking up. Yeah. Pause. Why? I shrugged. Comfort costs money. She stared at me. Since when are we nitpicking a few degrees? I met her eyes. Since your son decided I was nothing more than a credit card with legs. Her lips parted, then closed again. She had no answer. That night we didn't speak again. Not over dinner, not while brushing our teeth in silence. Not under the sheets that used to mean something more than shared real estate. The next morning, she cornered me in the laundry room. You can't punish him like this. It's cruel. Cruel, I scoffed. Cruel was standing at that dinner party last fall. Wine in my hand, watching Zach laugh with his friends as he called me the sponsor. And you laughed with them. It was a joke. No, it was honesty dressed as humor. That's what kids do when they know no one will stop them. She stepped back. He's just young. I folded a towel, handed it to her. And I'm just done. That landed harder than I expected. She stood there holding the towel like it burned her hands. Then, quietly, she left. By Friday, Zach finally came to me. He stood at the threshold of the kitchen, not quite stepping in, as though the tile itself would cost him something. His voice was less cocky now, measured, cautious. So, what's going on? I looked up from the newspaper I was pretending to read. With what? The Wi-Fi, my subscriptions, the debit card. Did you turn everything off? I folded the paper, took my time. I stopped providing services where I'm not respected. He blinked. You're serious? I nodded. Dead serious. He didn't yell. That surprised me. He just stood there, trying to summon the old entitlement. But it wouldn't come. It had nothing left to lean on. No support beam. No safety net. Just his own reflection in the empty glass of the microwave door behind me. Then he said something I didn't expect. I didn't mean it. What I said. About you not raising me. I didn't move. Didn't blink. He waited for my response. I gave him none. That was the real punishment. Not the silence of the internet or the absence of his favorite shows, but the silence of a man who no longer begged for respect. A man who no longer needed it. He retreated, back to his empty room, back to the mattress with no bed frame, the walls with no screens, the desk that had vanished like a lie finally exposed. And me? I exhaled for the first time in years. That night, Jenna confronted me again. Less anger now, more desperation. He's miserable. You've made your point. Can't we just move forward? I stood from the armchair, looked her in the eye. Jenna, I don't think you understand. This isn't about moving forward. This is about stopping the cycle. I gave and gave while you stayed silent, while he insulted me in front of company, while he disrespected the only man who's ever stood in his life longer than a season. Now he's getting exactly what he asked for. Tears welled. But she didn't fight me this time. And then she asked, almost in a whisper, "Are you leaving?" I shook my head. No, not yet. But I've left the part of me that tolerated this. The TV stayed off that weekend. No pizza nights. No laughter echoing down the hall. Zach avoided me like a ghost. Jenna cooked in silence, eyes fixed on the stovetop like it held the answers. And I learned to sit with the quiet. It didn't scare me anymore, because now the silence had a price, and someone else was finally paying it. A couple of days passed, and the air settled into something sterile. Tension stopped vibrating and just hardened into walls. I'd walk through the house and feel it. A vacuum of connection. Each of us sealed in our own emotional Tupperware. Preserved but not fed. They acted like nothing happened. Zach kept his head down. Played it cool. No apologies. No outbursts. Just avoidance. I'd hear the shuffle of his bare feet at odd hours. Catch a glimpse of him in the hallway like some nocturnal rodent trying to avoid detection. Every once in a while, I'd hear him try to connect to the Wi-Fi again. The soft thump of failure, the muttered curse under his breath. But otherwise, silence. Jenna tried. She cooked dinner like always. 3 plates, 3 forks, 3 chairs. And then she'd sit there with both hands in her lap, waiting for someone to speak. I didn't. Zach didn't. She'd serve chicken or pasta or something equally forgettable, and I'd eat in silence. Cut slowly. Chew methodically. Look nowhere. The only sound was the click of silverware against ceramic. Zach never looked up. He'd just push food around like a child too old to sulk but too young to own his shame. It didn't feel like punishment. Felt like exposure. Like I'd peeled away the soft comforts and made everyone face what they'd built. A house held together by my money, my silence, and their shared disdain. After dinner, I'd take my plate to the sink. Wash it. Dry it. Return to my room. Jenna would stay behind, staring at the remaining dishes like they were evidence of a crime no one wanted to prosecute. No more movie nights. No more shared errands. No more late-night DoorDash runs just because Zach was craving tacos. That life was over. What remained was the skeleton of a home. And yet I could breathe. Funny how the absence of comfort sometimes feels like clarity. I'd wake up in the morning without that tightness in my chest. No more pretending. No more playing the role of the happy provider while biting down on every insult. Every joke made at my expense. Every eye roll. Every comment about how I'm not like Dad. I was nothing like his dad. His dad didn't pay. Didn't show up. Didn't answer calls unless there was a holiday card or guilt involved. He was a ghost. And ghosts don't get spit on. Ghosts don't get laughed at in public. Only the living do. A week into the silence, Zach came into the room where I sat reading. He hovered in the doorway. That same cautious posture, hands in pockets, shoulders slouched in some preemptive defense. He didn't knock, just stood there. "So," he said, "how am I supposed to pay rent for college now?" That was the sentence. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I didn't mean it." Not even, "Can we talk?" Just straight to business. Right to the account he used to have access to. I set the book down slowly. "You don't want a father," I said. "And that means you don't get a father's funding." He didn't respond at first. I could see him calculating, measuring my face for any hint of weakness. When he found none, he tried sarcasm. "That's real mature." I smiled. Just slightly. "Maturity," I said, "is not funding someone who spent the last 5 years telling you you're irrelevant." He shifted his weight, picked at the hem of his hoodie. "You're just gonna let me drown?" I didn't move, didn't flinch. "No," I said. "I'm letting you swim." He stared at me for a long time, maybe waiting for me to blink. Maybe thinking this was some drawn-out punishment that would end with a teary hug and a reset button. But it wasn't. This was a closure. He left without another word. That night, I opened the financial folder again. Reviewed every line item tied to him. Every expense I'd absorbed on time, in full, without applause. School books, meal plans, dorm bedding, winter clothes, emergency dental, gas stipends, conference trips, late-night Venmo requests labeled urgent. All of it had flowed through me like water through a leaking pipe. And I let it, because I thought love meant never mentioning the receipt. But love without respect, that's not family. That's servitude. A couple of days later, Jenna came to me in the living room. The air between us was thick, familiar, but not warm. She had a look in her eyes I'd seen once before. The day her ex showed up drunk at Zach's middle school play and tried to sweet-talk his way into the back row. She sat across from me. "I spoke to Zach." I nodded. "He says you've cut him off." "I have." "Completely?" "Yes." She hesitated. "Don't you think that's harsh?" "No," I said. "I think it's overdue." Her jaw tightened. "He's still a kid." I met her eyes. "He's a kid who declared I was just a wallet." So I closed the account. She looked down, rubbed the skin between her eyes like it hurt. Then, "What happened to forgiveness?" I leaned forward. "Forgiveness doesn't mean funding. Forgiveness means I stop letting it eat me. It doesn't mean I keep writing checks for a boy who spits on the signature." She didn't reply, because deep down, she knew I was right. She just didn't like the cost. That evening, Zach didn't come to dinner. The two of us ate in silence. Again. But this time, I noticed something different in Jenna. She didn't make his plate, didn't call up the stairs. She just ate. Slowly. Quietly. Like maybe she was starting to understand what it means to serve someone who thinks they're owed. After the dishes were done, I returned to my book. Outside, the wind picked up. Blew hard against the windows. The kind of gust that rattles the panes and makes the house feel old. And for the first time since this all began, I smiled. Because old houses creak. But they don't collapse when they've got solid beams. It started small, barely noticeable, like a change in the light. Zach stopped slamming his door. Stopped sighing dramatically when he passed me in the hallway. He started looking at me again. Not with warmth, not with remorse, but with something close to awareness. Like he finally understood I wasn't a vending machine disguised as a man. The irony? Once I was honest, everything else changed. When I stopped pretending, stopped hoping, stopped playing the silent, suffering role of stepfather as martyr, the entire ecosystem of this house shifted. He began asking Jenna instead of me. You wanted a ride? Jenna. Needed money for a group project? Jenna. Textbooks overdue? Jenna. She didn't always have an answer. That's the part that broke first. She didn't have the income, didn't have the backup plans. She never thought she'd need them because she'd always had me. She tried to patch it together at first. A little from savings, a little from her card, a little from frantic phone calls to her ex who never picked up. But the dam had cracked. And Zach could feel the water rising. I watched it happen, quietly, unapologetically, because I wasn't being cruel. I was being honest. And honesty has weight. It started to press on him. I could see it in the way his posture changed, how his voice lost that performative laziness, how his jokes dried up. He wasn't eating as much, not out of some silent protest, but because his prepaid card wasn't reloading, and Jenna was too embarrassed to ask me for grocery money again. One night, he knocked on my door. First time in years. I opened it. Found him standing there, hands clasped in front of him like he was at confession. I'm not here to ask for money, he said quickly. I nodded. Waited. His voice faltered. I didn't mean for things to get like this. Still, I said nothing. Let him carry the weight of silence for once. He shifted. I was angry. Stupid. I thought if I pushed you away first, then it wouldn't hurt if you left. I stared at him, long and hard, the way you stare at someone who's finally telling the truth after a lifetime of lies. And he blinked. I guess I didn't think you'd actually stop. I stepped aside. Let him in. He sat on the edge of the armchair, awkward, stiff. You always just kept showing up, he said. Even when I was awful. I thought that meant you always would. No matter what. That's not love, I said. That's exploitation. He swallowed hard. You feel sorry for yourself? I asked. Yeah, he admitted. Good, I said. That means you finally feel something. He nodded. Looked down at his hands. I'm not asking you to pay for anything, he said again. I just wanted to say I get it now. What you did, what I didn't do. And I believed him, but I didn't soften, because regret isn't the same as gratitude, and fear of loss isn't the same as love. I stood. Zach, I said, you were old enough to mean what you said, and now you're old enough to live with it. He didn't argue, didn't beg, just nodded, got up, left the room, and that's when I knew he had actually heard me. The next week he got a job. Part-time, nothing glamorous, stocking shelves at a supermarket. I didn't say a word, but Jenna did. He's trying, she told me. Don't you think you've made your point? It's not about points, I said. It's about roles. If I'm not his father, then he doesn't get to expect a father's rescue. She didn't like that, but she didn't argue. We slept back to back for a while after that. Not in anger, in mourning. For the life we pretended we had. By the end of the month, Zach's tuition was past due. He applied for emergency aid. He worked double shifts. He asked his biological dad for help again. And again he got silence. I think that's when the final wall fell. When he realized I'd been filling the void left by a man who never even noticed it was there. He didn't come to me for help. But he did come back. Every night I heard him in the kitchen, making his own meals, washing his own plate, leaving the house cleaner than he found it. No thanks. No speeches. Just consistency. That's how I knew it was real. He'd learned something. Not about money, but about debt. About what it means to be carried. And what it means to carry yourself. Jenna cried the day she saw him fold laundry without being asked. I didn't comfort her. Some reckonings you have to go through alone. The house stayed quiet. Not cold, just simple. Honest. No pretense. No illusions. And I found I liked it that way. One afternoon, Zach came to me with a form in his hand. "What's this?" I asked. "A FAFSA correction form," he said. "I'm removing you as a financial sponsor." I looked at him, saw the weight in his face. Not defiance, resolution. I nodded. "All right." He hesitated. "I don't want you to think I'm pushing you out." "You already did," I said. "Now you're just making it official." He winced, but didn't back down. "That's fair," he said. "But I still wanted you to see it." He left the form on the table, and I didn't touch it. That night, Jenna asked me if I thought he'd ever come around. If there was ever a future where I could forgive him completely. "I already did," I said. "But forgiveness isn't a reset button. It's a boundary. One I'm not crossing again." She nodded. "Do you still want this family?" she asked. And I answered honestly. "I want a family that wants me back." She looked away, didn't respond, because she knew. She had let it fester. Let him mock me in public, diminish me in private. Her silence made him brave. And her loyalty, I realized, had always been divided. That was the night I packed a bag. Not out of rage. Not to punish. Just because I was done living where I wasn't respected. I left her a note on the kitchen table. "You asked me to let you handle it. You did. Now I'm handling me." I moved into a rental 2 towns over. Small place. No drama. Just mine. Zach sent one message a few weeks later. No begging. No excuses. Just a photo of his first paycheck. No caption. That was enough. He was standing now. Maybe for the first time. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. Out of trust. Because once he stopped seeing me as the man who buys stuff, he started becoming a man himself. And that's what fathers are for. Even the ones who never get called Dad. So now I ask you, was I wrong to walk away once the truth was spoken? Or is love that requires silence not love at all? Would you have stayed? Would you have endured it? Or would you, too, have left a note and finally chosen yourself?